It's 1945. Your country has just lost the war. Your cities are in ruins. And now Allied soldiers are forcing you to walk through a concentration camp and look at what was done in your country's name. You see the bodies. You see people who were starved, tortured, and murdered. And suddenly, saying, "I didn't know," is no longer enough. When the Second World War ended, Germany was destroyed. Millions were dead, families had lost everything, and much of the country had been reduced to rubble. But Germans were also beginning to face another reality: the full scale of the Holocaust and the crimes committed by the Nazi government. As Allied troops liberated the camps, civilians from nearby communities were sometimes ordered to enter them. They were made to see the bodies, the starvation, and the evidence of mass murder for themselves. For some Germans, this was the first time they understood the full scale of what had happened. Others had heard rumors, witnessed persecution, or suspected more than they were willing to admit. And some had simply chosen not to ask questions. After the war, many Germans claimed they had known nothing. But the truth was more complicated. Not everyone knew about the machinery of the extermination camps, but millions had watched Jewish neighbors disappear. They had seen businesses destroyed, families removed, rights taken away, and entire groups described as enemies. Some supported it, and some were frightened. Some felt powerless, and many convinced themselves it was safer not to look too closely. Germany then began a long and painful process of confronting what had happened. The Nazi Party was banned. Senior leaders were prosecuted at the Nuremberg trials. Nazi symbols were removed. Schools eventually began teaching future generations about the Holocaust and the dangers of dictatorship, propaganda, and blind obedience. But this change did not happen immediately. For years, many people avoided the subject. Some denied responsibility. Others wanted to rebuild the country without discussing how it had reached that point. It was often the children and grandchildren of the wartime generation who began asking harder questions. What did you know? What did you see? And why didn't more people speak up? And that is where this history becomes uncomfortable for us today. I am not saying America today is the same as Nazi Germany. It isn't. But history does not have to repeat itself exactly for us to recognize familiar human behavior. Right now, some Americans are watching people lose rights, legal protections, and basic dignity, and convincing themselves it is acceptable because it's happening to somebody else. Some trust whatever the leaders tell them. Some excuse cruelty because they support the political party carrying it out. And some are afraid to speak. And some simply turn away because paying attention would force them to confront something they do not want to believe about their own country. That is how people become used to things they once would have considered unthinkable. Not all at once. One law at a time, one group at a time, one excuse at a time. One moment when ordinary people decide that silence is easier than resistance. The lesson of post-war Germany is not that every German was equally guilty. It is that a society can reach a point where people are eventually forced to look directly at the consequences of everything they ignored, accepted, or explained away. And by then, the damage has already been done. History does not ask us to feel guilty for what previous generations did. It asks us what we are willing to notice while it's happening. Because one day, people may ask this generation the same questions. What did you know? What did you see? And why did so many of you look away? History will remember, even if you do not.